Hey everybody, Ben Little here, Ridgeback Customs, showing off a product. I don't know if it'll have enough content for a full-length video or if this will just wind up being a post, but I wanted to get some video of the product before it went away. Found a home with its new owner. What this is a giant camera bag. The project came about when a friend of mine whose wife is a photographer wanted to do something special for her birthday. So before the end of the year, late December, mid to late December last year, we got together and started drafting up plans for just a badass camera bag that kind of met all the needs that he would want. So a couple of the criteria that we were designing for is she has big, long telephoto lenses, max length of 10 inches. Finding a camera bag that can fit that was difficult. She has a couple of them, so the bag needed to fit that. Has a laptop or iPad, someplace to stick that, and then still plenty of cargo room. Other things I wanted to design for is old school, a classic look to the bag in terms of the materials and construction. So a lot of the features on here, the way it's designed, the way it's made, could have been made the same way prior to 1900. So all the materials and construction are things that would have been available prior to 1900, including the hardware, as much as I could. The exception to that would probably be the thread. Nylon and polyester weren't invented until the early to mid 1900s. I'd have to look up the dates. So that was one of the criteria. I wanted something old school that could have been made the same way 100 plus years ago, but with kind of a modern twist. And with that kind of criteria, we just started sketching out ideas, going back and forth, probably went through 4 or 5 iterations of the design to get what we were looking for. So with that, I'm just going to show off some of the features, some of the design elements that we went with to give the bag the look that we want. So first, quick look around. Here's your front of the bag. It's not really cooperating. Obviously went with a highly decorative front with the Lilith carving there. It's all hand carved into leather. So one of the criteria is we were trying to maximize the amount of real estate available on the top flap. So there's no attachment elements, no hardware, no anything on the top of the bag to interfere with the portrait work. So it makes it a really nice blank canvas for the project that I was working on, but any future projects that use this design. This is a big open piece that anybody could design to put anything on there. Really happy with how the carving turned out. Just some tweaks to the design, maybe to the base sketch, but overall very happy with how that works. On the back side of the flap, obviously we need a way to get that open. So keeping with the old school hardcore metal look to it, went with like brass grommets and rings in order to be the swing element. One of the nice elements of that is there's no force. If it were stitched, there would be a force kind of keeping it closed. Right now, with as heavy as that lid is, it wants to keep itself closed. And since there's nothing wanting to keep it closed, it really just opens up very easily, all on its own, kind of stays open. So really easy open close, even in spite of the fact that it's very thick leather, very stout. So opens up real nice. On the inside here, there's a cover flap. And that's just so none of the metal elements outside touch off on any of the sensitive or expensive items inside of the bag. Probably can't see that. So there's a little flap there so that when it's closed, it's mostly closed all the way. And then when the lid's closed, there's actually no open pathway directly into the bag. Any sort of moisture or spillage would get mostly blocked by that leather piece there. Other elements we wanted. So the gusset is probably one of the cooler elements. This is, I want to say my idea, but we really were trying to come up with something. Rather than make the gusset out of one piece, when we do that, you'll see it on the tote bags, the gusset wants to, when you close it, force its way out or force its way in. When it forces its way out, it changes the profile shape of the bag when it's closed. And when it forces its way in, it really interferes with the amount of real estate you have available when the bag's closed. So that was one piece that we were trying to solve and get past. And so to get past that, we split the gusset up into multiple pieces so that I have basically this piece in the middle, which makes it fold out into an accordion shape. So when it's actually closed, you get kind of zigzag pattern to the gusset, which prevents it from either popping too far out or too far into the bag, and really preserves a lot of the real estate on the bag. Another cool element that let us do is the cinching mechanism. So we were trying to figure out how to get rid of an attachment point on the top cover to preserve all that real estate, but still able to close up the bag. I think this was her husband's idea, going back and forth. He said, was there any way that you could just kind of pull it shut, cinch it? And taking that idea and applying it to what I've seen in, honestly, the Birkin bag. The Hermes Birkin uses a similar design element to cinch up and close. The main difference there is that their side gusset is all one piece that's folded a certain way to make this same similar shape. But then punching a hole through that, you get a piece of leather that runs through the gusset, through a zigzag pattern, and then by pulling and cinching down on that element, be able to cinch up the bag and close it. And so with the cinching mechanism, you can adjust it, but we also didn't want this dangly bit hanging out. So there's a second punch through here where the dangle, the rest of it that's not used, can be channeled back into the bag. So again, it keeps a nice clean profile on the front side. Now, with as big as the lens pockets are on here, it doesn't cinch up all the way. So if somebody either didn't want those or had smaller lenses or something, the bag would cinch up really tight, which is a nice feature. But again, with the lenses, that makes it a little bit more difficult. So one of the things I also added, which actually brings us to the lens holders. So the lens holders, again, I wanted to make this the same way they could have made it, 100 years ago. So it kind of limits the options in terms of padding and what's available. So started looking, and what I found was really thick pile shearling. So this is real sheep shearling, approximately 3/4 to 1 inch pile. So very soft, very cushioning, very warm. Should be mittens out of it or something, but preserves the lenses so they're not damaged or anything in transit. Very deep pockets all the way down to the bottom of the bag. And then also on the very bottom of the bag for additional padding and protection, the very bottom is also lined in shearling. Front element, obviously you got 3 pockets on the front. So 5-inch wide and 2 4-inch wide pockets for little things, memory cards, batteries, etc. That could be on the front there. So when we finish up all the elements, last thing with was the strap. Strap is similar to the tote bags I make in terms of the construction. So buckle, right now it just has a single hole for an adjustment point, but if it needed to be tighter, I'll leave it to him and her to punch a different hole if they want something that's a little shorter. So it's about a 36-inch long strap on the long side. Buckle side's about 15 in the before it gets processed, about 9-10 inches long from here to there. Again, all solid brass hardware, connection points. And one of the elements that I wanted to solve here is basically just the weight of the bag. Minus the strap, the raw weight of the bag, completely empty, is about little under 7 pounds. It's 6 pounds and some change. So again, not small. One of the factors for that is the leather. And we went with a fairly thick brown leather. This is sable leather. Sable is the color. It's an oil tan. It's fairly heavy. We also went with a thicker cut for most of the design elements at a 5/6 ounce. So for those not familiar with the leather world, that's somewhere between 2 and 2.4 millimeters thick. So a thick leather, there's a lot of square footage in this bag, more than you would probably guess based off of the elements that are stacked on top of each other. And all that together just makes a very heavy bag. Very stout, very strong, but again, very heavy. So I wanted to kind of cushion that a little bit. So first element is went with a thicker strap, wider strap compared to the tote bags. Tote bags start at 1 inch wide. So I went with 1.5, really fits the rest of the aesthetic of the bag well, I think. And then the biggest thing is I wanted to design my own little shoulder pad here. So I went with a smaller shoulder pad, made from the same leather as everything else. Interior to here is another element that's probably post 1900, which is the foam. I did put a little piece of foam in here for shoulder protection, but I also did the shearling as well. And with those two elements together, honestly, the difference between just the 1.5 inch wide strap, which is tolerable, and the shoulder element with that is night and day difference. Realistically, it feels like it drops the weight by 40% if I had to just kind of eyeball it, so something I really like. So that's a look at the bag that I've been working on, probably for the last month, off and on, which taken up a lot of my time, but really love the project. Sir, if you're watching, thank you so much for the opportunity on the project. Really happy with what we've created together, and thank you so much. Now that this is posted or will be posted, I'll be back at my usual routine. I do have a couple customs already in the chute that I'll be working on next, but really hope you enjoy the bag, and thank you.